Oh my gosh. So the fight was canceled. Just my timing. I do a prediction video. I haven't done a prediction video in a long time. And then the day I do a prediction video, a few hours later, the fight gets canceled. But let's talk about the details of this and what it could mean for Jake Paul moving forward. Okay, so there's a lot of blame game kind of thing going on right now. And here's the like just the facts of the situation, right? And this is confirmed by both parties. These are the facts. The fight was scheduled to take place at the cruiserweight weight limit, which is 200 pounds in the sport of boxing. Hasim Rahman Jr. was tested in terms of his weight by the commission to ensure that it was even possible. I think at the time he weighed maybe like 220 pounds or something like that, and he had about 30 days to reduce the weight. Hasim Rahman Jr. said that he needed to lose 1 pound per day to make the weight, which is not necessarily true. All he needed to do was, I think it was like maybe a half a pound, because it was 30 days, 20 pounds, right? So Hasim Rahman Jr. was then recently re-weighed, and he had only lost 1 pound from the last time he was weighed. And granted, the fight will take place in 1 week, 1 week from the day he was weighed, which was yesterday. So the fact that he only lost 1 pound means he wasn't even focused on the weight loss. I get it. People say, hey, look, losing weight is hard. Losing weight is difficult. But if you sign on the dotted line, that says you must weigh 200 pounds, don't sign on the dotted line if you don't think you can make 200 pounds. I think at the end, when they re-weighed, they realized, it was out in the open that they couldn't make the weight. So they made a demand to be at 215 pounds as opposed to 200 pounds. Jake Paul allowed for 5 pound difference, which would put it at the heavyweight division. The moment you come out of 200 pounds, you're in the heavyweight division. So he allowed for a 5 pound difference. It would have been a heavyweight fight. And Hasim Rahman Jr. and his team said no, 215 pounds. Now, everything that I'm saying right now is what happened. 215 pounds when Jake Paul is preparing for a 200 pound fight is massive. Jake Paul's preparing for a cruiserweight fight, and Hasim Rahman, essentially, if you think about it in how divisions are separated, let's say, because of course heavyweight is unlimited, but let's say, it's going from like lightweight, right? You would essentially be moving up about 3 divisions. So you would be asking Jake Paul to fight 3 divisions above what he was preparing to fight for. That's essentially telling a junior lightweight, not even a lightweight, a junior lightweight to fight a welterweight fighter. That's literally what, Hasim Rahman Jr. was asking Jake Paul to do when they agreed to the cruiserweight division. So basically, Hasim Rahman Jr. signed a contract knowing that he had to be 200 pounds, did not make an attempt to lose the weight, because even if they're like, oh, he can't do it, he lost 1 pound. Losing weight is science, it's scientific. You can lose the weight, even if it's difficult, whatever, you can lose the weight. For him to have lost just 1 pound from the first weigh-in is kind of unprofessional, to be honest. A lot of people are trying to say, Jake Paul knew he was gonna drain him and all this stuff, but he didn't make an attempt, and he signed and agreed to the 200 pounds. I get it. He put himself at the worst position possible, right? He signed a contract that wasn't in his favor. Of course, Jake Paul gave him a pretty non a non-wiggle room kind of contract, but he still signed and agreed. He still stated that he can make the weight, and he was still checked on that night or the 30 days before to see if he was on pace or had a good weight to make it to 200 pounds. When they rechecked him and he had only lost 1 pound, that's incredibly unprofessional in my opinion. Now, I'm not saying that Jake Paul technically pulled out of the fight, because Hasim Rahman Jr. wanted to still fight him at 215. But can you blame Jake Paul for pulling out, where now he would have to fight within 1 week? Within 1 week, which means Jake Paul's probably trying to make weight himself. He's probably trying to stay at 200 or under himself. And within 1 week, he has to move up essentially 3 divisions to fight him. It's not heavyweight. If this was a heavyweight fight, it's a different story. There's no limit in heavyweight, so that it comes with the territory. But there are limits in cruiserweight. Anything below heavyweight, there's a limit. So Jake Paul's preparing for that limit, and he only has 1 week, and Hasim Rahman Jr. is telling him, now you got to fight me at 215 pounds. I think that that's unfair in Rahman's part, because that should have been something negotiated before he signed on the contract. He didn't negotiate anything. He just signed whatever they sent him because he just wanted the opportunity. But when everything hit the fan, he had really no answers, because it's kind of unprofessional to just lose 1 pound and be so far away from the weight limit just 1 week from the fight, and then request 215 pounds when you know in the contract it is 200 pounds. Now, I'm not like going for Jake Paul in this, or I'm not going for Hasim Rahman Jr., but in my humble opinion, I think Jake Paul pulled out of the fight. But I do think that Rahman Jr. was in the wrong for being deceptive about the weight loss and just not putting that forward during the initial contract negotiation. Just signing on the dotted line, without any thought of if he could do it or not, and then losing 1 pound. I mean, that is pretty egregious. He should have lost at least way more than, he should have definitely lost way more than that. Jake Paul even gave a wiggle room of 5 pounds, and still, he knew he couldn't make that. All right, guys, that was it. I'm super disappointed. Wanted to see that fight. Wanted to see what was going to happen with Jake Paul. Like I said, I predicted Hasim Rahman Jr. to beat Jake Paul by knockout. Yeah, but unfortunately, we're not getting that fight. I'm hoping that, we get some type of a fight with Jake Paul and a boxer. I want him to fight a boxer, but at this point, who knows what's going to happen with that. It might be a Tommy Fury if he gets everything situated, but who knows. Let's just wait and see what's Jake Paul's next move going to be. I think a fight with Anderson Silva will be pretty good. They're kind of similar, and I like Anderson Silva. So we'll have to wait and see. But until the next one, guys, this is Edward from Box Fanatico, and I'm out.